Robert Saleh out as head coach for the New York Jets. What's it mean for Saleh? What's it mean for the Jets going forward? Got a big matchup with the Bills. They could be tied in the AFC East. That division gets interesting, and the Chiefs continue to roll, go 5-0 on Monday Night Football. All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love our everydayers and appreciate all the new listeners this season to P&W. Make sure you're subscribed. Please hit that subscribe button. Stop right now and subscribe wherever you are listening to this podcast, and of course on video on YouTube every single day. 5 days a week, not every week. We do take some weekends off, even though we're working on the weekends, Matt, watching football. And some things we expect, some things we do not, like what happened with the New York Jets today. And we'll get into all of that with Robert Saleh and the Jets going forward. This episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. And just a little bit of a shocker. After 5 weeks of the season, you thought maybe this is a seat that could get hot, but the New York Jets 2-3 start have fired head coach Robert Saleh, defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich becomes the interim head coach there, and so many things come to mind with this football team. Number one being, I don't know how a defensive-minded head coach could be blamed for anything that's going on with the Jets this year or all of the years prior when it's been a good defense and it's been the offense that's been letting this team down for so long, man.
Yeah, and weird organization. I mean, not a lot of historical greatness in this organization, and I keep harping on that the older I get, that there are franchises that don't do things as well as others. You know, I mean, I bring that up a fair amount, that there are 32 teams in the league, but they all run their 32 organizations 32 different ways, you know, from the top down. And I don't inspire a lot of confidence in Jets leadership from the top and, you know, over the years. That being said, I've kind of looked at Saleh as high-end defensive coordinator, closer to high-end defensive coordinator than high-end head coach. I'm not sure that he's great at leading a whole team and handling media and all that stuff. But I do think he's hamstrung a little bit by ownership, and who knows if it's even his decision to go get Rodgers and dedicate all these resources to Rodgers. As a head coach, you're kind of handcuffed in that regard. But that all being said, I probably could have came up with 5 head coaches I would have bet would have got fired before him. Like, I wouldn't have had a chip down for him this first to go.
Exactly. And I would say if you are, and this is where I advise my 6-year-old son, and it's like, look, if you're going to play football, play quarterback, because you get hit a little bit less, right? You get paid the most money, and maybe play baseball or basketball first if you can, because of the salary structures of those leagues. And if you're going to go into other things in football, be a GM rather than a coach. I think the hours are better, and guess what? You get to fire people and you get to blame other people first, and a little bit more job security there. And I think that's a lot of what's going on here. The GM is not going to fire himself. The GM has the owner's ear, and you bring up a big name in Aaron Rodgers, and we've only seen Aaron Rodgers for 5 full games now. And to be honest with you, he doesn't look like the same guy that he once was. I think he's still an NFL quarterback, but at 40, coming off an Achilles, there's some times where it doesn't look amazing, and some things feel a little off with the Jets offense. And I would still point to that side of the ball, even with Aaron Rodgers, which makes it more curious with firing Robert Saleh, and what can you blame? So if I was pointing fingers in that building, and you've already talked about ownership, which you're not going to fire the owner, and so that's something that's just going to stay. I would point to the guy who brought in all the bad quarterbacks over the course of Robert Saleh's career in the GM, and I would point to the offensive coordinator, who I think is not a good offensive coordinator and has not been good for a while and has been kind of riding Aaron Rodgers' coattails and clearly has a good relationship with him. And so now it becomes buddy-buddy with Aaron Rodgers, and it feels like maybe actually Aaron Rodgers is de facto GM and head coach of this football team right now, Matt.
Yeah, and that's a weird situation to get into that I don't think works out well in the end. I mean, he's an odd bird that's up in age, obviously. He's an all-time great. He's a phenomenal football player, or was, and I still think he's, I wouldn't say a shell of himself. I still think he's an adequate NFL quarterback, but he's also starting to show those signs that Breeze, Eli, Ryan, Ben, at the end, I don't love getting hit. I don't love hanging in the pocket and the physicality of the sport that I've chosen at my age. And was he thrilled to go overseas? And, maybe the ball comes out a little quicker than it should. And he's always been – one thing I said about Rodgers, like, it's probably before we did this podcast, because I was making an argument at one point in his career, much like Mahomes, that I thought he was the best I've ever seen. And that was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whatever. And one of my arguments in Rodgers' favor was, if we lined up all the Hall of Fame quarterbacks, all the all-time greats, and we put all their highlight tapes in, I might pick his. Like, wow, what a highlight tape he's put together. But if we also put their low-light tape in, I might pick his, because he never turned the ball over, never made mistakes. That low-light tape is getting fuller. There's more and more, why'd you make that throw? Or you didn't just throw it away. And right. I don't love that he has the power he does.
And Robert Saleh's not calling plays on that offense, not running that offense. And so clearly, to me, Robert Saleh is not the problem with the New York Jets. It hasn't been. I think he's a well-respected guy. I think he'll get swooped up and get a job really quick. And, whether that's defensive coordinator, might get some head coach interviews in the offseason, probably will end up consulting with a team, say, on the West Coast at some point very soon, who's having some weird issues on their defense right now. That he used to coach for. So we'll see what happens there with Robert Saleh in the immediate future, in the distant future, but he'll be okay. And clearly a scapegoat here for a Jets team that, and really, to be honest with you, I have a feeling Rodgers and Saleh just don't kind of see eye to eye. That's what we're seeing the end result of right now.
I think that's the long and short of it. Like, owner's not going anywhere, quarterback's not going anywhere. Next to go is GM, first to go is head coach. But those two are definitely not going anywhere. And it sure seems like Rodgers and head coach were oil and water. And frankly, I don't really know what this accomplishes. Are the Jets better now? Do they have a better chance of making the playoffs? Are they harder to play against? I don't think so.
It's one less coach in the building. It's the same offense, same defense, same play callers on offense and defense. It's a message sent. Do you get that interim bump that we see against a divisional rival? And we'll get into this next. It's the Buffalo Bills, I believe, on Monday Night Football, right? Next week coming up. So,
are they? Okay.
There's a week you want to bump. It would be this week, where you could potentially be tied for first place in your division if you go beat the Buffalo Bills. And so, is that enough? Did Robert Saleh hurt himself by allowing Jeff Ulbrich to become the play caller on defense? Because it gives
made it more valuable. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've got a play caller in house, Robert, so we can let you go if we don't think structurally things are ideal at the top. So, and look, I don't know what the ins and outs are in the building and in the coaching staff. Was Robert Saleh not a good head coach? It's really hard to say because, again, I think he was given awful quarterbacks, and he's had 5 weeks of adequate quarterback play. And again, it's not the defense, it's the offense in those 5 games that's been the bigger issue to me.
Yes, and the running game's the weakest part of the offense, and I don't understand why Breece Hall's not getting more and more touches. Allen's an impressive young player, but Hall seems like a special player. But I would have he would be the foundation of my offense. They don't see it that same way.
It's like the Algier Bijan thing in Atlanta.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. And the more when you were talking through Ulbrich, I mean, he's in the scheme of coaching world. It's kind of like the Pierce hire with the Raiders last year, halfway through, except for he's not the rah-rah guy. I mean, that one was ding dong, the witch is dead. Let's get the old guy out of here. And that I kind of understood. But Pierce and Ulbrich are kind of interesting to me in that they played recently. They haven't been coaches for very long. You kind of mentioned Ulbrich is somewhat in the scheme of the coaching landscape, is somewhat of a new defensive play caller. Now he's got to handle the whole thing on game day and during the week. Like, his job just got a lot harder, and I'm not sure that he was great at his new job. I mean, he was new to that part of the job. You know what I mean?
He did call plays when if I remember correctly, Ulbrich, before he went to the Jets, he was in Atlanta last, right? And there was like I want to say he was with the Falcons, and they had like a 2-man defensive play caller situation. Like,
yeah, that's 100% true.
Downs versus third down. So he had kind of called some.
Was it with Miami? I remember Miami did that goofy 2 defensive coordinator thing, and I think he was part of that. That being said, I mean, I just don't know that he's ready to be a head guy, like handle all the head stuff on the course of the week and the media and on game day. And then the last question I have about this whole situation too, we can talk about Ulbrich more, but does this make them more or less likely to trade for Davante Adams?
Ooh, let's pause right there.
Okay.
Davante Adams, is he the thing that needs to come and add to this situation now? You subtract Robert Saleh, add Davante Adams. Does that fix things for the New York Jets? How is this going to look for them? Let's talk about the AFC East, because there's the Miami Dolphins that could get in that 3-3 mix as well after week 6 of the NFL season. And the Monday Nighter Kansas City Chiefs defeat the Saints. More on the Kansas City Chiefs and the Saints as well next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Hey, NFL fans, you can start with a big return right now on FanDuel, because when you sign up for FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. You don't have to win that first $5 bet to get $200 extra to play with on FanDuel. And you can bet on the New York Jets to turn this around and go win the Super Bowl this year. You can bet on the next head coach that's going to be fired. You can bet on every prop bet you can imagine every week, all the weekly lines, of course, and not just NFL bets, college football, combat sports, horse racing, whatever you're into and whatever action you want to get in on, you can find it at FanDuel. And by the way, when you get a hunch when you're watching week 6 football games and you want to go check out the latest stats, maybe view some live play-by-play and so much more, you can find it all on the very same page where you're placing your bets at FanDuel, and maybe inform your future bets at FanDuel. And again, get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com or download the app. That's FanDuel.com. This episode is also brought to you by Hillsdale College. And time is our most precious commodity, right? So don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. You can actually spend it wisely and improving yourself and maybe learn a little something along the way. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, tons of them. We're talking economics and math and literature and philosophy and history and so much more. How about this one? There's the, hold on, I got to get this class right. It is in the Fine Arts building. Oh no, I'm going to lose it because I had to bring it up on the screen to even get it correct, but it's something, it was basically Beethoven to Pythagoras. We're talking music and we're talking fine arts, and look, you can find so much more at Hillsdale College. All of Hillsdale courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in whenever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, so much more. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. All right. New York Jets fired head coach Robert Saleh. Interim head coach is defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich. So schemes stay there. And maybe that interim bump is all this Jets team needs to light a fire under everybody in the building and maybe go beat the Buffalo Bills, who have had a little bit of an up and down season to start this year, Matt. And it's the 3-2 Bills and the 2-3 New York Jets in week 6. Which team, and could this become a bidding war, in fact, could get Davante Adams to town before next Monday night is my question, Matt.
I was just going to say, my prediction is Davante Adams plays in that game. That's not super spicy. I think it happens soon. Real quick, you mentioned that one team's 3-2, the other one's 2-3. You know, Tuesdays are kind of our big picture thing. 21 teams out of 32 right now either have 2 or 3 wins. I mean, the league wants that parity. If your favorite team is one of them and you're disappointed by it or whatever, you're kind of in the majority. You know what I mean? I just wanted to get that out there. But yeah, I think
everybody else is 1-4, right? So they're like, well, shoot, we're one game out of being in the top 2/3 of the league right now, you know? So
yeah,
we're close to it as well, which means there's more teams you're going to have to fight with. We're going to be looking a lot at some tiebreakers when it comes to the playoffs as well. And there's only 2 teams that are 5-0, and the Kansas City Chiefs are one of those after Monday night. So Vikings and Chiefs are the only teams in the NFL that really have any breathing room right now. I guess the Texans too, even though they have 1 loss, because I don't think there's anybody that's going to contend in that division for the title.
True. So back to the original question, who knows? But I just think the Jets are now more likely to trade for Adams than before, because if they sided with the quarterback and not the head coach, and the quarterback's best buddies with the receiver, maybe the head coach was getting in the way of that. I mean, I'm speculating, of course.
And yeah, and so maybe there's differences of opinions on how to build this thing and what the Jets should do going forward. And if you are the GM and you're Aaron Rodgers, you might be saying, well, we might get fired next or might be gone next. And Aaron Rodgers, I think, you know, we've said on this very show, it's like, okay, Aaron Rodgers, better quarterback play than the Jets have had recently, but it looks like the last year of his career. There might not be a lot left after this. So you think Aaron Rodgers cares about future draft picks? You think Douglas, the GM, might be like, look, I might not be spending these draft picks if we don't go do something big. So maybe the next domino, and clearly a team that's searching for something, it would make it seem like they're ready to make moves, right? The New York Jets having already made one. Was it just the coach, or could they send picks to the Raiders now for Davante Adams? And I still think the Bills are the team that needs him the most, and I would like to see him most on the Buffalo Bills right now for Josh Allen. And I think if you're Davante Adams, you know and love Aaron Rodgers and maybe want to play with your old buddy. And clearly Davante Adams has already made that decision to go play with his buddy Derek Carr once in his career. Was that a mistake? Do you have a better shot at winning with the Bills or the Jets? And I would still say the Bills, I think, if I'm Davante Adams. So everything still points to me with the Bills, but if I had to bet, I'd probably place the bet that the Jets end up with Davante Adams. But it could be a 2-team race here. And then you got the other, I think the next 2 teams are the ones in the AFC North, in the Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. So there might be a bidding war from 2. I mean, this is exactly what you want if you're the Raiders and you're trying to trade a player. You want 2, not only 1 bidding war, but 2 separate bidding wars going on. So you're like, hey, Jets, the Bills are offering more than you are. And guess what? There's these other 2 teams that are also offering more than you are. So you got to beat 3 teams, and there's all this bidding going against each other and trying to play keep away as well as trying to get the guy in your own building.
And again, we're speculating, but if the majority of what you said is true, which I tend to believe, I think he ends up with the Jets, because what do they care about the future picks? You know, like you said, Rodgers and the GM are trying to survive or aren't going to be there for long. And just the nature of the organizations, I don't think the Steelers are going to overspend for them. I mean, if they're asking a 2, they're not going to be like, I'll give you a 1 just to make sure I get them. I mean, they're not, and I don't see Baltimore acting that way. I'd be shocked if Buffalo does. Baltimore and Buffalo at least are potential Super Bowl winners. You know, I mean, I think that push their chips in makes a little more sense. But I think in the end, the Jets just say, what do we care? Let's just push it all in, and someone else can deal with the draft pick ramification next year. It's good for the Raiders.
It is good for the Raiders. Joe Douglas has been a little tight with his picks, though, right? I feel like he's not the type of GM that's going to spend picks and bring people in from the outside.
I mean, I remember him like trading Jamal Adams, but that's when they were down and out and they were getting picks for guys when he got there.
He's an add picks, not subtract picks GM.
Yeah, I can't remember any instances where he really went crazy.
And again,
might not be up to him though.
Aaron Rodgers is the GM now, so I guess
right.
He's the send picks guy.
Yeah, and Mike Williams is fine, but he hasn't exactly fit the bill of star number 2 receiver.
A couple more notes here in the AFC East, actually, and it involves the Miami Dolphins and the New England Patriots. So we're not leaving them out of it in this discussion, even though we think it might be more of a two-team race. The Miami Dolphins, another 2-3 team that could also be 3-3. We could have a three-way tie at the top of the AFC East after week 6. But I'm going to look ahead a little bit with the Dolphins a couple of weeks as well, on top of looking at this week's games and what that means for the East and for the Miami Dolphins. And we might see a change at quarterback for the New England Patriots and see that rookie number 3 overall draft pick soon as well. So some updates from New England. And of course, Chiefs defeating the Saints. All of it next. I get so pumped when it's time to go see some of my favorite bands that are coming around very soon, and found some tickets on Game Time. And then there's even another show that some of my friends are going to, and I'm not as pumped on that show, but you know what? I'm looking at some of these seats and the prices are coming down. If I get some really killer last minute deals, I'm going to go to that show as well and have a whole bunch of fun. And you can find concert tickets, of course, NFL football tickets, college football tickets, comedy shows, all of it at Game Time. And now a new feature at Game Time called Game Time Picks, which makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier, especially if you're, say, looking for tickets at an NFL game where there's 50,000 seats. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And of course, you've got the panoramic view from your seat when you're buying tickets, know exactly what you're going to get. And you got to toggle on the all-in pricing, so you see all the totals up front and you get no surprise fees at checkout. Love that feature at Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. So real quick, Miami Dolphins, we can have a three-way tie at 3-3 at the top of the AFC East. If the Jets beat the Bills on Monday night, get that interim bump, and who knows, maybe Davante Adams in the house, and the Miami Dolphins win in week 6. And the Dolphins have another winnable game. It's the Indianapolis Colts, who are not playing at a super high level right now. So, you get the Patriots and the Colts, and you figure things out with Tua, and you start looking ahead. They've got a bye week coming up. And then in week 8, they've got the Buffalo Bills. So can you win a couple games here? The Colts, Cardinals, bye week. And then all of a sudden you get Tua back, Buffalo Bills, and now the Miami Dolphins are in this thing. So this AFC East is going to be, I think, a fascinating run down the stretch, especially if a superstar wide receiver is dropped into the mix with either the Bills or the New York Jets. And so I'm excited for it. And now we're getting rumblings out of New England, Matt, that Drake May might become the starting quarterback of the New England Patriots. So that becomes somewhat of a watchable team on Sundays now as well, even though I don't think that's going to help them go win the division or anything. And I hope that offensive line can block things up for him. But I want to go directly to the quote from head coach Jerod Mayo here in New England. And he said, well, this is from Mike Reese, who covers the Patriots. And so basically he said that Mayo said that things were unsustainable right now and seemed to be strongly considering a switch to Drake May. A notable shift in Jerod Mayo's answers regarding the quarterback situation in his day after game video conference compared to past weeks. So might we see Drake May this week as well? The Pats are playing the Texans. I don't know if that's a great week, but I don't know if the Patriots have a great week to implement their young rookie quarterback. If he looks like he can protect himself, I think you just got to put him out there.
Yeah, and one other note I wanted to make about the Adams to playing in Monday Night Football is the fact that it's Monday Night Football. You get one more day to acclimate him into your system and all that. That would be helpful if you're those teams. Real quick on Miami, and I definitely want to talk about May. It doesn't seem like much that they beat the Patriots, and it was a game people didn't pay much attention to, but it was crucial. I mean, it's a division game, it's a conference game, and if you would have lost it, we would not be talking about them at all in this light, that, Tua might be back soon. I mean, to be like, dig a grave, throw the Dolphins in there. I mean, it was a game they had to win, and they, it keeps their head above water during this rough period. And I have no inside knowledge, but I get the hunch Tua is going to come back. I don't think he's done or anything like that. But back to May, I think yes is the answer. Like, what are we doing? Put him in here. Let's see what the kid can do. Yeah,
I'm with you because nothing's going to change. You're not going to revamp your offensive line during the season. So you have to do what you can. It's going to have to be a sink and swim for him, or you just let him continue to sit with what we're seeing. And yeah, it is unsustainable. It's bad out there. And it's not that Jacoby Brissett's playing great either and like doing a good job protecting himself. So Drake May, I think the time is coming. Will it be this week? We'll find out maybe very soon there. By the way, I wanted to bring this up about Robert Saleh. These are the quarterbacks that Robert Saleh has had as his starters in his time with the New York Jets. 33 starts from Zach Wilson, disaster. 7 games from Mike White, which might have been the best.
Yeah,
Joe Flacco, they didn't even get the good Cleveland Browns Joe Flacco when he was quarterbacking the Jets most of those times either. That was 5 games of Flacco. You had 3 games of Trevor Siemian. You had 2 starts by Tim Boyle, and then 4 plays, so 6 total starts from Aaron Rodgers, but really 5 games because he tore his Achilles in the first series last year. So that's what he's had to deal with so far this year, or through his career. And so again, like pointing the finger at Robert Saleh just seems kind of crazy to me. Anyway,
obviously Zach Wilson's the one that stands out. I mean, every team over that stretch has had to play some. Well, most teams have had to play some backups and non-capable quarterbacks. That's just the league we're in, unfortunately. But the Wilson move, which was not him, is the one that really stands out,
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I'd point to, and right now I would point to offensive coordinator before I would point to Robert Saleh as well. But clearly, if Rodgers is running the show, that's not going to happen. All right, let's get to the case.
Real quick on the offensive coordinator. I have not studied their tape or broken down their X's and O's to great detail, but those that have that I trust have basically said this is the most stripped down basic version of old school West Coast Bill Walsh offense that you'll find. Like they didn't roll with the changes. Like this is an old ass scheme,
Well, that was what was the whole thing in Denver too. It was like, well, this snaps over their heads, and this is not good. And I think the Denver Broncos wanted to bring in Aaron Rodgers too, which is why that all happened in the first place. So I don't know. We'll see how this goes for the
maybe Rodgers is poison.
Well, there is some.
There's that too, right?
Yeah. I don't think but you still want a good NFL quarterback, and he's still a decent NFL quarterback. He's better than all the other names we mentioned there for the Jets. Yeah. They're still not winning. I don't know. Maybe it is Robert Saleh. Maybe that's the change they needed. We'll find out. The Kansas City Chiefs. This is what fascinates me. So you look at the Niners, and I cover the 49ers, so I get a lot of conversations about that. A lot of people ask me like, "What's wrong? This is off, and this is off." And the Jets like, "Oh, this is off, and this is off." Feels disjointed. And the Kansas City Chiefs are sitting here at 5-0, and it's like, it's not great, and things seem a little off sometimes, but they still go win. And so is it just because of the quarterback? Is it because of the coach? Do they have the right head coach that really can oversee these things? Because it's not like Patrick Mahomes is having his best season, and they're losing wide receivers. They've got they could use Devontae Adams too, but you get Kareem Hunt with 102 rushing yards on Monday Night Football. You get Juju Smith-Schuster 7 for 130, and this is 2020 we're talking about.
Right.
What's going on? And the Chiefs are like, "No, we're cool. We're gonna go out. We're gonna go 5-0. We're fine." 26-13 win over the New Orleans Saints on Monday Night Football.
So the one thing I have to get out of the way is my favorite thing of the whole game was this is from Next Gen Stats. At 324 pounds, Saints defensive tackle Kalen Saunders reached a top speed of 15.9 miles per hour on his 36-yard interception return, the third fastest speed by a ball carrier who weighs over 320 pounds since 2016. Why is that noteworthy? Because Kalen Saunders' brother is like the lead backup dancer for Taylor Swift, who is up in the box, which I just love. That's the kind of goofy stuff I love.
I did not know where you're going with that. How did the Chiefs let him get out of the building? The former Chief, Kalen Saunders, by the way.
And I know who they're talking about. He looks like Kalen Saunders dancing with Taylor Swift. He stands out.
And does he dance at 15 miles an hour?
I don't know, but he stands out and he does a good job. And Taylor was in the house. So
clearly, it's in the bloodlines there. Athletic, large human beings.
Absolutely, and they can get up and go. But I mean, this game, to me, the Saints, like, it's a long time ago that they were scoring 40, 50 points a game to open the season. And a couple numbers just stand out of the dominance of the Chiefs here, no matter who's touching the ball. Hunt, Juju, whoever. 28 first downs to 14, 460 yards to 220, basically 40 minutes of time of possession to 20. I mean, just controlled every aspect of the game.
By the way, on that interception by Kalen Saunders, that was the red zone. Like, how do you trot number 87 off the field on that play? And then all of a sudden there's instantly an interception. If there's any time you want Travis Kelce on the field, it's when you're trying to score a touchdown. And by the way, there was some vintage Travis Kelce moments in this game as well. In fact, Smith-Schuster was like, oh man, I felt like I was 21 again. He said that after the game. And yeah, and so
22, that's a Taylor Swift song, dude.
Oh, there you go. Sorry, 22.
That's the whole joke. I feel like I'm 22. That's like her biggest hit. Yeah, not 35. It's all about Taylor.
All about Taylor turning back the clock to 2020 to 1989. Yeah. That's a Taylor Swift, right?
I don't know that part. I just know the 22 joke. Right?
I think it was an album, maybe. I don't know. Sorry, I'm not up to speed on my Taylor Swift, but I'm up to speed on my Kansas.
16-year-old daughter goes a long way to knowing these things.
Oh, right. Yeah, I don't have one of those in my house. That would very much help me out with some of those references. The Chiefs are still good, I guess. They'll be fine. After week 2, we're like, oh man, are the Vikings for real? Are the Saints for real? Well, the Vikings look for real. Saints, not so much over the last 3 weeks.
No, I'm not saying they can't make the playoffs or contend in their division, but they're pretty ordinary.
They're one of those 21 teams that are 2-3 and 3-2. And so the question becomes, is there still 20 teams after week 17 that are like 8-8, and they're trying to figure out which teams are going to be 9-8 and have to win a tiebreaker to get in the playoffs, and which teams are going to finish 8-9.
Other than Kalen Saunders, the other thing I got a kick out of is the end of the game, Carr got banged up. I don't know how bad it is. And they put Jake Hoerner, H-O-E-R, Hearn. Yeah, what I never say his name.
Fresno State legend, Jake Haener. Yeah.
He looked like a high school kid out there. But I mean, I just plopped them into a regular season game, and I thought they grabbed the local star recruit from the local high school.
the emergency goalie that you like to talk about.
That guy, the plumber, and he said, "I'll be there in a minute." Put the pads on in the van,
All right, that is week 5 of the NFL.
5 in the books.
Comes to a fantastic end with the not fantastic as good, but fantastic as wow. We got a lot of news here. Robert Saleh, the first head coach fired of the 2024 season for the New York Jets. Probably more on this story. Might hear more about Davante Adams on the move this week as well. And of course, we'll start making picks and breaking down week 6 of the NFL season as well. Plus your questions for this week's mailbag. So get those in at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Drop a question on the YouTube comments. Make sure you subscribe while you're there. Matt and I back tomorrow. Peacock and Williamson.